get around. And then our robot is actually just that bent up paper clip I was using earlier, and it's going to sit at the end of the cave. So your goal is going to be to design something that can fit through the cave, follow the curve of the cave, and retrieve the lost robot. Alright, engineers, you now know how to make an electromagnet, and you know how they work. Now it's time to put your engineering abilities to the test and see if you can rescue that robot from the cave. Good luck. And that's that.
That was another really good job too.
So, I've modified this since I think all of you have seen it. Before, we were fishing for magnetic fish. Now we're retrieving a lost robot. So the design setup is really easy. I actually, in here, I don't have it explained because I thought the video presented it pretty well. For going beyond, like if a kid gets this, hopefully maybe you have 2 courses set up, one being much more complicated. And then also a great thing, what I had in my high school engineering classes, almost every project we had a budget and everything was budgeted. So setting prices to the materials was one of my options. So like a pipe cleaner would be perfect for this. So make the pipe cleaner $100 and have your budget be $200. So maybe you have to think around just having a single pipe cleaner. Other than that, like everyone else, I just followed the template. Except my situational statement is much more integral to the design challenge. What I took away from this class, I'm not very good at presenting to a younger audience, or at least I wasn't, or to an audience that doesn't understand all the content. I have a hard time simplifying things without being, like, appearing arrogant. Just be honest. It was. So I think this class really helped me with being able to present material in a friendly way. Hopefully that comes across well. Also, like other people have said, I had a great experience in high school with engineering, and I know a lot of kids don't have that, so I thought it was awesome that I could give back to the community.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Pipe cleaners, which have steel in them, if you magnetize them enough so that they get stuck on the Ferris walls.
But while they're chatting about this, who wants to go next?
If you don't hook it up to the thing.
Right, yeah.
Elsa!
Let's do Elsa. Fight now. Who wants to go next?
Sorry, they're not
The battery leak.
Why? Why?
That was a great presentation.
Paul, do you want a charger?
Sure.
Is it this time?
The design challenge. How can I get the charger to
Is it this kind?
out getting on a light checker?
Andrew, would you want me to level out the volume on that at all?
It wasn't too bad.
Okay.
You could tell that you videotaped it at different times
I'm gonna use it.
Yeah.
because of the different lighting.
It was just, actually only the very last scene was from a different time.
Right, I could tell.
Yeah.
I wondered if it was even a different shirt too.
It's the same shirt.
Yellow suit.
Just for fun, but then
That's fine.
Well, I finished the video and then I watched it and I'm like, this just ends really awkwardly.
I think you did a great job. And by the way, your presentation still at the end. That's what I'm basically mentioning. is
my whole thing, like,
you
after
are.
Oh, yeah, move whatever you need.
I'll
Sorry about that.
10 minutes long. Should have been a blooper reel because it was pretty funny. That's what it is.
Hey, hey. Alright, so I'm gonna start. I like to follow position.
That's fine. English usually does.
Huh?
Which video?
Oh, it's the Ethiopian.
I like how all these are uploaded
Wait.
3 or 4 hours ago.
Yeah, there's that one.
One hour.
I think Elsa and I went.
We finished. It's finished. Like, do it at your pleasure.
I was done with it last night. I just did the perfect.
Yeah, you had a missing part. That's fun.
Hi, I'm Elsa. and I'm a third-year environmental engineering student at The Ohio State University. Today, we're going to be doing a project called Extracting Pollutant. So where does water come from? If you drink bottled water, you might think it comes from glaciers or from some stream in the middle of the mountains. But tap water that we drink every day actually comes from rivers that are near the place that we live. But wait, most of the natural water that I see outside is brown, but the water that I drink from home is clear. Well, that's because water goes through a treatment process before it ever gets to us. And that treatment is just like when you go to the doctor and you're sick, and he gives you something and it makes you better. If we didn't treat our water, we could get sick from the stuff that's in the river water. And it looked kind of like this. No thanks. But our treatment systems are really good at handling all the stuff that's in the river, so we don't have to worry. Do we? What if something gets added to the water that our treatment systems don't handle? Something that's dangerous, new. What do we do then? We have to find out a way of getting it out, right? We don't want to get sick. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. So let's talk about some of the things that we normally find in river water. So right here, I've got my box full of water, okay? So this is going to be our water, just these little fake golf balls. And that's the first thing that we need in river water, right? We need water. Okay, so what's next? This is going to be our clay. So clay is essentially just tiny, tiny pieces of soil that just float around in our water. So we'll go ahead and add some clay. Next, we have what's called organic matter. And organic matter is just when plants and animals die and they decompose, they turn into organic matter. So we'll go ahead and add that. The last component of our normal river water is called algae. And algae, kind of like the clay, are tiny, tiny plants, actually, that grow in the water. They float on the surface and use photosynthesis and the nutrients in the water to grow. So we'll go ahead and add all of those. So under normal circumstances, all these things are good for the river. They're healthy to have in the water, even though when we want to drink, we take them out. Next, we need to add our pollutant. This is nanosilver. This is what I worked with during my summer at the Environmental Engineering Research Lab at OSU. We're concerned because nanosilver is used in a lot of things, from athletic wear to refrigerators to bandages, because it's really good at getting rid of things that we don't want there, namely microorganisms. And our concern is because nobody's done any research into what happens once they're done, once you throw away that bandage, or once you wash your clothes. So once they're in the environment, what happens? And if nanosilver really is harmful for the environment, we need to get it out. And that makes it a pollutant. So this is the pollutant that we're going to add to our river system. Now it seems silly. I just added my nanosilver to my water. Can't I just reach in and take it out again? Well, no, because remember that all of this stuff that we're dealing with is so small, we can't really touch it. So we need a tool that we can use to just get out the nanosilver and leave our healthy river system as we found it. And that's your job today. You'll be developing a tool that only extracts the nanosilver out from our river system, leaving everything else behind. Have fun, good luck, and be creative.
Very
With my video, I wanted to kind of focus a little bit more on the background because they were saying that the video might be used for both the students and for the facilitators. But I also wanted to show kind of what the testing setup actually looks like. I also described exactly how many, or approximately how many, of each kind of sample I put in here, which is under build a prototype, because they'll have some time to check out the test setup then. So let's see, besides that, for the background, my research is kind of difficult to translate into a design challenge because, I can't remember who said it before, but we didn't get a whole lot done over the summer. And there wasn't very much design challenge-esque things that we were doing. It was mostly just identifying whether or not nanosilver actually binds to clay. And because that was step one, we didn't really get to the point whether does it actually hurt the environment. So I'm taking the stance here that maybe it is, but we should still figure out how to get it out. So with my design challenge, essentially what they have to do is they have to create some kind of scoop or a fishing rod or anything that they can imagine to get only the nanosilver out of the box, leaving everything else behind. And they were actually really successful with this. I think it was definitely, of my 2 design challenges, it was definitely the one that worked the best. Because right off the bat, 100% of the kids were like, I know it, well, okay, except for one. Everyone but one was like, I know what I'm gonna do. And they just like scattered. And every single one of their designs was absolutely different, and they developed it without relying on other people. They were convinced that theirs was the best, which was wonderful. So I ended up with like a lot of different designs. They all worked individually, but they're like, oh, that's cool. Mine's better. So it was really fun. It wasn't competitive. It was all good fun. And I even took pictures of them, so I was so proud. But yeah, I definitely think it succeeds as an open-ended design challenge because of that fact. Like they all like had a different idea and they ran with it, but every single one of them was successful. By the end of the class, they all managed to get all of these out in just one try. So that was really cool. But that made me think, because we had one girl who was really good at everything. Her name was Naishe, and she just leapt through all the challenges and just like 100% just like done in like half an hour. So she always challenged us to think of the next step. How are we gonna make you have something to do? So for this one, my idea was that because a lot of this is based on skill, they can kind of cheat a little bit. They like move it around and then just like stick it up. So the challenge that they have after they get it all out in one try is to be blindfolded. And they have to get it out without being able to see. And then I would hope that that would keep them occupied, because they might have to, knowing the designs that they came up with, they would have to, some of them would have to actually redesign completely. So it's almost like a starting over point. It's a different way of looking at it, and I think that might be a good way to go for those quick. Are there any questions on this? None? Okay. Cool. So about TEK8. So coming into this, I was really excited because like I've heard you guys are like, I had like engineering in middle school. I actually had the complete opposite experience. Going into my senior year of high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. Like, absolutely none. If you heard some of the things I was considering, it was a good time. But I did end up choosing engineering mostly because my dad's an engineer. And even though I'm not that interested in like mechanical stuff, which is what I kind of assumed engineering was, I decided to like give it a shot, and it turns out this is where I belong. So I wonder now if I'd had that in middle school or in my high school career, whether I would have been a lot more comfortable and like self-assured going into engineering in college. And I think that's one of the reasons that I didn't even know was why I actually took TEK8, was because I really wanted to be that person that would be like, hey, engineering is not all, cars. No offense. It's like, there's just so many different things that you can do, and there's, and I love the challenge of coming up with the design challenge, because I've struggled with that a lot, just because my research is just difficult. But in the end, it's something that I'm really proud of, something that I definitely want to talk about, and I tell everyone about it. So, and just like seeing them successful on that last day, because this was the last design challenge we did, and seeing them like really excited about it. We even had 2 new kids, and they were all over it. It was wonderful. So just like that experience is something I'm never gonna forget, and it's something that I think like I feel like I had an impact, and that's something that's really special. So I think that's everything.
All right, thank you all. Ben, you're up.
Give me more. Else, give another, just another.
Oh, yeah,
one.
yeah.
There you go. Thanks.
Thank you.
Sorry, did I not give you one?
Thanks.
That's fine. Thank you.
Just can't figure out the-
That was back 40 minutes ago.
40 minutes ago, there we go. During the class.
My name is Beth, and I want to talk to you about cancer prevention challenge. First, I want to talk to you just a little bit about the cells. Now, in your body, you have trillions and trillions of cells that make up each and every single part of your body. And lots of different types of them. pregnant cells, skin cells, and blood cells, and many different other kinds. Now, each and every one of those cells has a very special and important function that helps keep you alive. Like all living things, cells grow and reproduce. They make more of themselves. But sometimes cells grow out of control, just like weeds in a garden. And this is really bad for your body, and it's a disease that we call cancer. Now, every year, thousands of people die from cancer. Millions more find out that they have it. But there are a lot of effective treatments out there. One of the most common treatment methods is called chemotherapy. Now, chemotherapy works by taking special drugs and giving them to a patient. And those chemotherapy drugs work their way to cancer cells and stop them from growing out of control and prevent them from making more of each other, which is exactly what we want to try to do today. We want to try to get our special cancer drugs into our cancer cells. But first, let me show you our test setup. The first thing we need to do is get a large fan into place so that it's blowing upwards. Make sure the fan is off the ground so that the fan blades can pull air upwards. The next thing we need to do is put our cardboard box on top of our fan. Make sure that you tape all of the bottom flaps together so they don't blow out when the fan is on. We also need to tape together the top flaps, all of them except for one, which we want to leave loose. Now you can add our cancer drug to the box. This is like injecting the cancer drugs into a patient's body. Now let's take a look at our cancer cell. This cancerous cell is about to start growing out of control, but doctors caught it before it made the patient too sick. And so we can try and treat this cancer by trying to put the cancer drugs into the cancer cell. In order to test the effectiveness of our cancer drug on our cancer cell, we need to tape our cancer cell to the bottom of our test setup and then turn on our test setup for 30 seconds. When our test is over, we can take out our cancer cell and see how much of the drug got inside. When setting up your box, it's important to remember two things. One, make sure that your box is smaller than the diameter of your fan blades. Because if you use a box that's too big, then the cancer drug gets stuck to the sides of the box where the airflow is low. And two, you can use the loose flap at the top of the box to control how high the cancer drugs will fly. Once you find a good maximum height for your cancer drugs to be flying, make sure that you tape the loose flap down in place. Now it's your turn. You're going to use the engineering design process in order to try and improve this cancer therapy. There are 4 steps to the engineering design process. Step 1, identify. Why doesn't this cell uptake all of the cancer drugs? What is it about our situation that causes all of the drugs to not end up in our cell? Step 2, design. How can we modify this cell? How can we change it to improve the uptake of the drug? Make sure that you drop all of your ideas beforehand. Step 3, build. Now that you have all your ideas, go ahead and choose the best one, whichever one you think would get the most amount of drugs, and build it out of the materials that you have. Step 4, test. With your modified cell, try it out in the test apparatus and see how well it works. However, you're not done yet. The engineering design process repeats itself. It goes in a circle. So once you've tested your modified cell, go ahead and take a look at it and identify some of the different ways that it worked and maybe some of the different ways that it didn't. And go ahead and think about and design some new ways to improve on that idea. Hopefully, you can engineer the best cell possible in order to get the most amount of cancer drugs into the cell to help effectively treat this disease.
Bedtime story.
I know, yeah. So I had a different song, and it was like all nice and upbeat and whatever. And I was playing it like an hour before class, and there was like weird moaning in the background that like I hadn't noticed until I was like watching my video. So that's why I was like sitting here like changing things.
All right.
That was like the other like song I had downloaded to my computer. So
We're gonna work with that one. Go ahead.
yeah, so I guess kind of the big difference between I think what mine and the other people's as far as like the sheet is, I put most of like how the test frame sets up works in the video just because there was like a lot to like talk about and putting it, trying to like condense that into like a nice paragraph that people could read and understand like what was happening was difficult, and just like the video is just, it's very clear what's kind of happening. And then just kind of like the two big like finicky things is just the box fitting on the fan, and then the top, if it's open too much, they all start coming out the top. If it's too small, and they all just kind of sit at the bottom. And so it's hard to like put that into words, and so most of what's kind of on my sheet is kind of focused on kind of like the more backgroundy stuff and kind of how the cancer and stuff. And then I think the kind of follows what everyone else kind of said. My kind of situation was just, we have a person with cancer and we're going to treat it. And then the other thing was the going beyond part at the very, very end. So very clearly when someone actually goes through chemotherapy or cancer treatments, we're not modifying their cells to make them more susceptible to our treatments, we're changing our drugs. So that was kind of one of the things that I wanted to bring up in the questions was that, you know, clinically what you're doing is not changing someone's cells, you're changing the drugs. And so trying to get students to kind of think, I guess kind of think differently kind of what terms of what they did as part of the projects. And as far as materials, like I think Joe and I had like 4 like tubs of supplies at one point, and like I still have like 8 of those. And so for like when I actually worked down, I like basically cut everything out. Just kind of went with like paper and tape. One of the first things that the kids did when we gave them all the supplies was they all started like covering the top of the hole with like plastic wrap, and like we were like, why are you doing that? And they're like, well, we're gonna like put another cup inside of it to like make it bigger or something. And we were both just kind of like, that's a cool idea, but what if we just not do that? So I tried to like cut all like the other excess things out. Kind of the most popular ideas were just kind of making type a funnel shape, and so one of the other ideas I had as far as like the going beyond trying to make it harder was just giving smaller strips of paper, kind of limited supplies types things. That's it for that. Yeah, so my kind of process in studying the TEK8 program I think is slightly different from everybody else in that the research I did was over the course of last year. I didn't actually work in a lab this summer. And so the lab I worked in, Dr. He's lab, is the one that Jack worked in this past summer. And so he was one of the PIs that put up the funds for people. And he was the one who kind of told me about it. And I was kind of like, that sounds like a cool idea. That sounds like fun. And so that's kind of why I took it. I love working with kids. I think it's super fun. This was just a really great opportunity to kind of take what I've learned and kind of apply it in a different way that isn't like here at Ohio State and stuff like that. I think that kind of really relates to kind of how what I've learned the most out of this class is just communicating with people who don't understand what I'm saying, kind of like what Grant was saying. I just probably spent like an hour and a half trying to like set up this like 3 paragraphs here so I could like quickly go through what cells are, what cancer is, and then what chemo is, like in a way that was like very clear and wasn't confusing, but like people could understand. And so I think that's something that I've really kind of learned from this class is trying to break down like what I've learned into like a nice, easily communicatable idea.
Very nice. Okay, great. Thanks, Ben. All right, last.
Oh, you can go ahead and start my video if you want.
All of these?
Yep, those are all for you.
Oh, there we go. 3 minutes, exactly.
I know. 3.0. Oh, and I'm wearing black coat.
Right, and I'm Senior Student of Biomedical Engineering at The Ohio State University. This is the Nanoengineering and Biodesign Lab, and in this lab, we try to find a better way to study the way that cancer cells talk to each other. Let me explain that a little bit better.
1.6 million Americans are diagnosed with cancer each year, and 1 in 4 Americans die from cancer. But what is cancer? Well, the human body is an amazing system made up of billions of cells. Healthy cells grow, duplicate, and die. But sometimes healthy cells change or get damaged, and instead of dying when they should, they begin to grow out of control. This is called cancer. Cancer is often treated with chemotherapy. Chemotherapy puts drugs into a patient's body. But the problem is that in addition to killing cancer cells, chemotherapy also kills many healthy cells, leaving the patient with very bad side effects. It is very difficult to target cancer cells and kill them without killing healthy cells. But one way that researchers and engineers have done this is by studying the way that cells talk to each other. Cells talk to each other a lot like how humans do. It is similar to shaking hands. A small molecule, called a ligand, shown here in purple, attaches to contact points on a protein receptor, shown in blue. When the ligand and receptor connect, a signal is passed. This communication has a lot to do with why cancer cells grow out of control. The way that ligands attach to receptors is also a lot like the way that keys open locks. You see, the correct key fits perfectly into the correct lock and has just the right contact points to unlock it. If we have the wrong key, either the key won't fit inside the lock or the key won't have the right contact points to open the lock. In the nanoengineering biodesign lab, we use a nano-sized platform to study the way that cancer cells communicate. With the materials that you have, can you make a platform that holds a ligand? Remember that a ligand is a lot like a key. This is a platform prototype. It is a piece of cardboard with a hole in it. The ligand fits through the hole and the platform holds it, but it doesn't hold it tightly enough to interact with the receptor and unlock the lock. Can you make a platform that works better than this one? Remember that studying the way that cells communicate will help us create better cancer treatments with fewer side effects.
What will you design?
Sanofi.
Yes.
There you go.
So I have a tiny presentation here. And then just a PowerPoint that.
Okay, so the document that you have in front of you, did everyone get one? Excellent. It really walks you through the design project from beginning to end. So it starts off with giving the background and providing, didn't copy extensively well, but a pretty good image reminding the facilitator that the ligand is similar to the key while the receptor is similar to the lock. And then it talks about the significance and cancer, what cancer is, why cell communication is important to cancer. And then it explains the open-ended design challenge, the steps through it, and then it even gives the facilitator some tips as far as, you know, a lot of students will say they're not touching the key because they cover the key up with a piece of paper and then they're still directly holding the key and how that, you know, that doesn't count, things like that. And it gives questions that the facilitator should ask to remind the students about what is important in the design, you know, so how do cells communicate, why do cells communicate, what does the key represent, what does the lock represent, why are you making a platform for the key, and why is studying cell communication important, so that the students are reminded of the bigger picture. On the next page, it gives the prototype and step-by-step instructions on building it. I have the facilitator have all the students build the prototype so they can see for themselves why it doesn't work, so they can then make it better and design something new. And I have suggested materials and building and testing, just with tips that I think work best for this design challenge. So as far as encouraging the students to draw things out, but not forcing them to, and that some individuals and teams will test very quickly and they'll test dozens of times in an hour, or a dozen times an hour, and other teams will spend a lot of time on their design and they'll test twice or 3 times. And either one is fine as long as they're thinking about it, and the facilitators are really enforcing them to, you know, think about the bigger picture and the questions that they're being asked. And then very last, I have 2 pictures of designs that work and complete all 4 of the goals that are outlined within the packet. So I think between this and the video, it's fairly well explained and can be done without my help whatsoever. And then, this is a really simple PowerPoint, I'm not really sure how to make it, but what did I learn? So really 3 major ideas. I think that all of us could stand up here and talk about what we learned for a long time, but I won't do that to you, because I know some of you have some studying to do. But one is, I'm a TA for the College of Engineering, for the freshman engineering program. Some of you guys I had in class last year. But I didn't know if I would be able to teach engineering to a 6th grader. You know, I can teach it to a freshman engineer, but can I teach it to a 6th grader? Can I get those ideas across? And I think I learned that I can. Second, just really learning to explain my research. So it's difficult to, what took me months to learn, and then to explain it to one of my peers is fairly difficult. So then to take that and explain it to a 6th grader is another step. And I think I learned how to communicate those ideas really well and compare things to locks and keys or shaking hands, to really use those metaphors to help people from all different backgrounds understand engineering and my research. And I successfully explained my research to 8 people over the age of 80 and 6 people under the age of 12 on Thanksgiving Day. So I feel like I did pretty well. I think that they're expecting me to come back with like a cure to cancer next Thanksgiving, so I've got some work to do before then, based on what I explained. But and then third, the importance of engineering education. So I've always been interested in it, but really reading the articles and seeing that there is importance in reaching these, especially females and other minorities, around the age 5th grade, 7th grade, that's where the interest peaks, and that also more diverse teams tend to have better results, more diverse engineering teams come up with better solutions. So really, not only are we potentially directly impacting the students that we're working with, we're potentially creating better engineering teams in the future. But I think that's really important to know that you're making that impact and to know you have the ability to make that impact as we continue on in our engineering careers. And then last slide, most important slide, I just wanted to do a thank you to all the people that organized this course. Dr. Gustafson, I don't have you up here, but thank you to you two for coming and listening to all of us and for supporting this class. I think that we all talked about how much we learned and how important that was to our engineering education. Also to our fantastic teachers, John and Steve. They're great. I wish I had teachers like them when I was in middle school. So those Upper Arlington kids are a little spoiled by their great teachers. I'd like to thank my research advisors, the people that supported me throughout the summer and taught me this information so that I could then pass it on. And then to all of you, especially to Josh for putting up with me the most, but to all of you as well. Thank you for a great semester.
Thank you. Well, everyone, I'd like to just echo those words. Thank you all for all your hard work. That was wonderful. I'm thankful to see all your hard work here in this final documentation. I think 4-H has a lot to work with, and we're going to be probably communicating with them a lot more now. So, go ahead.
Okay. I know we're over time, so I'm keeping you more over time, and I know some of you have exams tomorrow, so I apologize for that. But it has really been inspiring to see what you did with this, because it's one of those things where cool ideas don't really become something until people like you use your creativity to make it happen. It's kind of like, this has potential, but I'm not sure quite what it looks like. And so you gave form to it, and in a really powerful way, and created experiences that I think these kids will remember. And also you were guinea pigs in something. And I think Andrew said early on, we don't know what we're doing, so so work with us. And I think you helped to create something that will continue on and get better. And so thanks for being a part of something that you didn't know what you were getting into, and we didn't quite know what you were getting into, and you really grabbed a hold of that, and I know there was some struggling in the middle of it. It's like, how do I take what I did in the summer and make a design challenge that's open-ended out of it, it's age appropriate for 5th grade grader? That in itself almost seems like you can't bring those together, and watching you actually do that and then grow in the process too was really inspiring for me. So thank you all for accomplishing what you did, and hopefully we'll, as Andrew said, we'll see some of these out on a 4-H website at some point in the not too distant future. So good job.
Yeah. Does anybody remember my challenge from the first day? Yep. Josh does. Anybody else? What was my challenge from the first day?
Like your challenge for yourself that So I think what you're going for is that this would be our favorite.